Okay, I think I am too early for my regular time. I am too early today, therefore I don't see anybody. Doesn't matter, I myself will start. After I start, somebody will come. Okay. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punahan Namami Gauda Padancha Shankaram Sri Sureshwaram Swaminam Satchidananda Mindram Tam Jnana Rupine. Om Narayan Narayan Narayan. So today is Sunday. So we are discussing Gita. In Gita, 32nd and 33rd shloka we discussed, but there is, regarding every shloka, my method is we discuss twice, because certain ideas, a new shloka or a new idea, when you discuss, you get first a certain overall picture. Okay, then overall picture and also certain other details you get when we leave it a day or so. Now here we are leaving 1 week, so let the person think over them, then mind goes deeper into it, it starts assimilating, it starts contemplating, reflecting over those ideas. Then in the next class, the same point we talk again. So that is a refining. It's like in painting, when you paint and at the end you do a minor touches. Okay. Similarly, we do in the second class the same topic, we take up the shloka again and certain minute details we discuss. Okay, so that the idea, the understanding becomes much thorough and clearer. So 32nd and 33rd we discussed, although we discussed, but a few more points I again cover. A few minor subtle points are left out. Left out means in a way I stated, but again need clarity. So here first in the beginning, 24th shloka, he told the Jnana Yajna. Okay, how the very Jnanam is stated as a Yajna, the very enlightenment, awareness of oneself as the whole universal, whole absolute, that itself is a Jnanam. There he described the enlightenment as if it is a yajna. He described Bhagavad Gita atava Bhagavan Krishna described enlightenment as a yajna, but he described it as a yajna, as a perfect yajna, as a great yajna, the highest yajna. Because see, we have to handle many things. Telling a fact is not enough, because no human being is free from emotion. No human being is free from emotion. People have some sentiments. You have to take care of those sentiments. As long as they are good sentiments, we have to take care of them and we have to include them in a higher level. Because whatever we learn at a lower level of sadhana, as we advance, as we proceed, these other level of sadhanas have to be included. Human being has certain sentiments, certain feelings, and certain samskara, that means old memories, those have to be included in higher one. For example, take here yajna. Yajna is a very noble word, is a beautiful word. Yajna itself is a greatest thing in the Vedic life. Yajna implies a noble life of sacrifice, service, helping, loving, caring, understanding, discipline, and also purity of the heart. It means, yajna means at the physical level, mental level, it means a highest, noblest life. Okay. Therefore, so jnanam, a person who comes with a background of yajna, you tell him there is something more than yajna. Oh, he feels, my God, I felt yajna is the highest, and he is talking of something different from yajna. Then he will lose respect for yajna. Okay. Therefore, the yajna has to be included in his sadhana. And therefore, the yajna is interpreted in different levels. And it is true also. One is a ritualistic yajna, one meaning. Another is various other sadhanas, yogic sadhana, service, any religious, any selfless service. A religious and selfless. I don't know how to use the word, because religious means in English it becomes a fanatic. Ritual means some fanatic. Then if you say simple service, they take it as secular in a worldly sense. So we just don't have a word at all. I don't know how to say in English. With a religious feeling. In fact, the word religion is beautiful, but it is the church, it is they have spoiled the word by creating a fanaticism about it, a dogma about it. Therefore, if you take the religion in general, not a particular dogma or a particular church or anything, take in a positive sense, religious feeling means a noble sentiment which really inspires you, which is a very good feeling, which inspires a highest, noblest feeling in you, a humility, a deepest feeling in you, a kind of a mystic, okay, a kind of a mystic feeling. Therefore, the religion itself is not bad, but these dogmas and organizations, they spoil everything. Therefore, we call them Shraddha Bhakti, with a devotion, with a faith. Shraddha means in Indian sense, faith. In Indian sense, faith and Shraddha and a noble feeling, a good heart. So all these things combined, and also with a discipline. When you do something, that is called yajna. So yajna involves different aspects of our life, all aspects of. One is a social. Yajna includes, in India, yajna includes your personal life, your family life, your social life, your economic and psychological. All this put together, combined in a positive way, in a noblest way, that is called yajna. Okay. So yajna is purifying your life, making your life much better. It includes ethics, it includes rituals, okay, it includes ritual purity. So whatever is the best in the ritual, that is included. Whatever is in the best in the discipline, that is included. Whatever is best in the ethics, that is also included, is a part of yajna. So yajna is a very comprehensive idea. But, and another is yajna is taken in a very simple sense, is just a ritual. Okay. So yajna is taken as a ritual first. First it is a ritual. Second, it is a broader sense, is other rituals, other karma yoga, all other yogas. We have discussed 12 kind of yajnas. All other yajnas are, they are all, so it is a broader meaning of yajna. We include all these things. Then in another level, yajna means tattva vichara. Okay, jnana yajna we call it. Because the feeling of, the understanding, the noblest feeling, the noblest idea, the discipline, the values, all of them which are included in yajna are definitely found in tattva vichara, in self-enquiry also. in spiritual investigation, spiritual inquiry also, all these noble feelings, good feelings, discipline, values, devotion involved in a yajna, in a ritual, all of them are included in Jnana Yoga also. Only thing is the external form of yajna is removed, but internally mind becomes a highly mature person. Therefore, he takes up Jnana Yajna. Okay. Then this Jnana Yajna culminates into enlightenment. Now here in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna in the 24th shloka, he described Jnani state, the enlightened person's experience, as also as Yajna. See how the Yajna has got a different levels of meaning. One is a simple ritual is Yajna. Another is any noble mature life, a good life, a devotional life, a noble life, a religious life of any other activity, any other profession, even that is yajna. Then this is second meaning. Third meaning is what you call jnana, tattva vichara, self-enquiry is also, tattva jnanam, self-enquiry is also yajna, is called jnana yajna. It is a third meaning. Fourth meaning is the jnani's enlightened state. He is already established, he is already discovered enlightened state is also described as a brahmarpanam, brahmahavihi. There that enlightened state of a jnani is described as a yajna, but it is not a what you say, a means yajna, it is a culmination of yajna. It is a yajna where all life is culminates, all yajnas, all rituals, all discipline, all values come to be fulfilled. You live a most highest creativity, highest spontaneity. Enlightened state is highest creativity, highest spontaneity. Any value reaches culmination there. If you take selflessness, you will become absolute selflessness. You become, if you take humility is a value, humility, egolessness, you will become absolutely egoless. If humility is a value, you become absolutely humble person. If you say creative, you will become absolutely creative person. Therefore, that enlightenment is a culmination of all noble values, and spontaneity, if you take, it is the highest spontaneity. And is a fearlessness, of course it is the highest stage where you are free from death, free from the fear of death, free from the fear of anything in life, because nothing disturbs you. If you say transcending the worldly life, samsara, then that is the state where you have transcended and reached the complete transcendence. Transcendence of complete time, place, world, cosmos, you become totally beyond cosmos. At the same time, when you say all pervasiveness, the immanence, it becomes absolutely immanent. That means he not only transcends and is also immanent. That means he doesn't see himself as an individual, but sees as the whole universe. And he just, if you take the love, love is the highest quality, then that enlightened state is a state of highest love, the greatest love and the deepest love. Okay, the highest love means highest selflessness, and the broadest one, it is a culmination of love where it is a spontaneity. Love is a spontaneous, and it is the deepest love. There is no iota of selfishness in it. If you take love is a great quality, a noble quality, the love reaches a maximum extent, the maximum culmination, it reaches in enlightenment. Therefore, that enlightened man's state, his experience, is described as a yajna. That means all yajnas culminate. Yajna reaches its highest state. Therefore, jnani state is called yajna. So here the word yajna is used in these four meanings just now we have discussed. One is the fire yajna, the Agnihotra, where you offer the ghee, you know that butter, burnt, what you say, boiled butter. It is a clarified butter. So that ghee, you know it, ghritam we call in Sanskrit. So that ghee you offer with the help of mantras in a particular time, conditions, in a way, with your feeling, with a good noble feeling, with a discipline and value. It is a daily ritual. Okay, but it is considered as the highest yajna. It makes you simple person, humble person. So that yajna ritual involves values, discipline and your loving relationship with Bhagwan, with Ishvara. Your wholehearted, sincere relationship also is related. And the Bhagwan is not a given person, is not a one entity. He is a universal principle. He is in the heart of you and me and everybody. So therefore, the relationship with Bhagwan means you become really selfless towards all people. So this is yajna. And the same yajna has been extended to other any noble life, any disciplined life, any selfless life. Like you can see Buddha. Buddha opposed Vedic rituals, but he called self-control, egolessness, control of sense organs, control of mind, and control of ego, transcending the ego. He called his yoga sadhana Ashtanga Marga. He called his self-control, control of sense organs, control of mind, purification of the mind as a yajna. See, Buddha, what Buddha talked about is, he was not against yajna. He used yajna in a different sense. So these different meanings we find in Vedic life alone. One is a ritual yajna, as I told you, fire ritual is yajna. Second is even the self-control, the values, the discipline, the purity, a noble good life, a selfless life, even that is yajna. So that is a broader meaning of yajna. So Buddha used, instead of a fire ritual yajna, he used this broader meaning of self-control, selfless life, a noble life, good life. That he emphasized that. He told your character and personality and vairagyam, this life is yajna. So Buddha was not against yajna. Only thing is, instead people try to divide it. Oh, Buddha was against yajna and he taught something else. Because the problem with these things is, I think in the next shloka I have to discuss that. The problem with modern society, modern civilization is, you people are incapable of understanding a deeper feelings, deeper religious, deeper philosophical life. They want to live like a common man, that too a perverted man, interested in a cheap, superficial life. And such people want to judge the higher mystic life. The high mystic life, they want to judge the high mystic life. I think this is in short, this is what communism means. I think communism, you may not use the word, but that has become all pervasive all over the world. Communism means totally materialistic, superficial, materialistic, animalistic life is called communism. So no faith, no deeper feelings, religious feeling of Shraddha, Bhakti, all that it mocks at them, and life has no deeper depth, no mysticism, nothing deeper. The respect for elderly people, respect for Guru, devotion to your parents, all these things, values, they make fun of them. Just live, you enjoy and then live and make money, and then that's all. This is the thing. So this communism has created a total atheistic, but atheism also we have got, as I told you, atheism also certain values, but here they represents the lowest aspect of atheism, the very lowest aspect of atheism, and it has got a sweet words, and it is terribly attracting. All over the world is destroyed with these things. One side, the problem, this communism, communistic, the negative aspect of communism is spreading fast is, I think, two reasons. One is they are controlling the materialistic life, that is a social, political, economic life. Because human life needs basic needs of your job, money and social relationship, all those things naturally, and the politics is inevitable for any society. Politics, economics and social life, these three are inevitable. They control these two. Okay. Once this control, they impose their values, they misinterpret, and they present that alone is a solution for everything. So the daily life they are controlling. Therefore consciously, unconsciously everybody is coming into that. Second thing is, the religions, Islam, Christianity, they have become imperialistic ideologies. The real religious depth was rarely there. In their entire history of Islam and Christianity, the real religion was rarely there. it was a more of a imperialism. Wherever it was there, it was a more in the periphery than in the real mainstream religion, mainstream society. It was in the periphery. There were few mystics, few really great people, but they have been sidelined, suppressed, and there were only few followers, but they did it only in their personal life. There was no common social life, living a spiritual and religious spiritual, I say. I think the language also is very difficult. The word religion carries different meaning in English. Spiritual, if you take it, you go by occult. Abba, anything you take is a different. I don't know what language to be, what words to use them. In English, using any word becomes very difficult. Spiritual means they take something. Because this is the science and communism, and the materialistic communism have destroyed the language. Any word you use, it gives a negative meaning. Because sadism and cynicism is the basic thing of communism. I am not against them if they talk of society, economics, politics, it's okay. After all, any human being needs a good social system, good economics, a good political system of values, administration. But the problem with the present Islam, Christianity and communism is they have dominated the modern civilization. They created a cynicism and sadism. Okay? They talk of everything. It is a destructive, highly destructive. The modern feminism and modern life, overindulging in worldly pleasures and no value system, break away the value system, freedom, human rights, freedom and feminism and economics, all these ultimately imply sadism and cynicism. Okay? Sadism, cynicism, control people and don't believe in anything, destroy the faith. See, in Islam, Christianity, faith is there. It has been dogmatized, but the faith you have to retain and make it healthy. Release it from the dogma. Okay? You have to release it from dogma. Make it healthy and reasonable. Make it logical. Faith can be purified, released from dogma and make it healthy, and you have to create a healthy atmosphere. A social life, economic life, personal life, rituals and then spirituality. But instead of that, see, the problem with the present civilization is, you can see all over the world, the people are coming to a breaking point of, I see the modern world, whether the East or the West, the communistic thinking is negative thinking. The basic problem is the cynicism, the negative thinking about anything in life. Everything destroy. And worldly pleasures make money and instruments, gadgets and excess of overindulgence in pleasures, more and more indulgence, no ethics, no values, no selfless love, no commitment, nothing. Sacrifice, suffering. See, people are against suffering, I tell you. Suffering, foolishly suffering, dogmatically suffering. See, the Jesus suffering, they make it into another dogma. That becomes another Freud's case. We are not going that. But in a healthy, voluntary, good suffering, in a healthy way, suffering means suffering for a good purpose. Taking trouble, positively, wholeheartedly, is a part of life. Not suffering itself should be a goal. Okay? They say that Jesus dies, therefore you also should suffer for no reason. Unnecessarily suffering, over suffering, it creates another psychological, Freud's problem. That is another extreme. We are not telling that. A little bit of reasonable good sacrifices, good suffering, taking some trouble in life is a part of life. Okay, those things, take them with a good intention, with a positive mind, then I tell you. Now they say there should not be physical suffering. There should be everything comfortable, pleasure, comfortable, ego satisfaction. Okay? Ego satisfaction means pleasing the ego. Ego can never be satisfied. Only sense pleasure, wild emotions, instinctive. That means ultimately they have come to satisfy impulses and instincts. Ultimately animalistic. We are trying to please the instincts, impulses and ego. and overindulgence in pleasures, produce a lot of electronic gadgets, make plenty of money and industrial production, and then indulge in pleasures and ego, and no values, no discipline, no sacrifices. Everything do just whatever you like. The freedom has become over, and it has become an ultimate perversion. It is an egoistic and perversion. The subduing the ego, making you humble, purifying it. Don't talk of purification. Don't talk of sacrifice. Don't talk of values. Don't talk of ethics. This is what the communism means, and indirectly Islam, Christianity also have come to mean this alone. They have some values, but that also has become over imposition. When it is over imposition, then that is creating another problem. Either it creates a Freud problem, or it creates a communistic rebels. Okay. The over imposition also creates a Freud problem. Therefore, Islam, Christianity could not solve the religious problem. Therefore, it has created an atheistic, perverse atheistic, communistic mindset. So, both are extremes. None of them represent a healthy religion or a healthy discipline. Okay. This is what is dominating the world. We need a religion, we need values, we need discipline. Everything has a place. But in the name of, now we have got only two things. Either Islam, religion means only dogmatic, or if you oppose religion, you become communistic. Only two things. Now has come another thing. Church itself is colluding with communists. Oh my God, this has become another problem now. Externally communistic, internally dogmatic. That means both evil, extreme evils. When both of them become extremes, both become evil, there is a combination of two evils. This has become further problem, complicating. Okay. So this is the world. So you make the person unfit for any healthy religious life, healthy spiritual life. You make the person's personality right from childhood, you mold them, the values, the thinking, the discipline in such a way that he will be unfit for any good and noble life. Oh, this is the danger the whole world is facing now. Okay. Everything you question. Questioning is good, but the questioning also should have a meaning, should have a purpose. It has become extreme that everything you question, that ultimately mind becomes a blank. You lose everything. You lose everything, that means ultimately you become cynical. The questioning has become so much that questioning everything, you become cynical, that's all. Cynicism is the only goal of questioning everything. This is becoming over logical thinking. Logical thinking which is wild logical thinking. Okay. The science also growing wildly also. Anything we question, anything we experiment. Experiment, ultimately wildness, nothing remains. Nothing lasting, nothing meaningful, nothing useful. So life has no meaning, world has no meaning, spirituality has no meaning, nothing is a meaning. We just don't know why we are living. It is becoming an aimlessness. Okay. This is a dangerous situation. The modern civilization, the 21st century is entering into. Oh, terrible. Already entered. I don't say all are like this. There are few people, good people, understanding. Okay. But they are far and rare and far. They are far, rare. And these things are dominating. The media is using, the education system, the media is using them to create this cynicism. So the goal of communism and the goal of Islam, Christianity, both are extremes. Ultimately, by combined together, they create a cynicism. They destroy the whole universe, whole world, whole human life has no meaning at all. Therefore, Therefore, with this kind of thinking, the problem with them is they are interfering every spiritual, every religion. They are interfering means they are misinterpreting, questioning everything and misinterpreting, and that is the problem of life. You see the people are just living aimlessness. They don't know why they are living, what they want, where they go, just they are living wildly, all aimlessness. So they are creating an aimlessness like this. Therefore, our understanding of Buddhism, I have just slightly deviated, but it is relevant also. When Buddha talked of self-control, that is a control of sense organs, vairagyam, detachment, selflessness, egolessness, he told the basic discipline of life, the values of life, self-control, control of sense organs and mind and purification. These things Buddha called yajna. It is not a new name. It existed already in Vedika Dharma. Buddha took only that aspect of it, and external ritual, he felt it is not required. External rituals are not required, only values, discipline, purity of the mind, detachment, he emphasized it, he propagated it, he called, but these things are called yajna in the Vedic life already. In Vedic life, even these values are called yajna, discipline is called yajna. Living pure life is also called yajna, selfless life, loving, caring, understanding, sharing, selflessly. Even these values are called yajna. But since there are many kind of yajnas, Buddha took that aspect alone, other aspect he ignored it. That this is how tradition understands. Therefore, we don't reject totally Buddha, and certain misinterpretations alone we reject. We accept Buddhism as not something separate, it is a part of it. But now these communistic and these Western interpretations, everything wildly they talk. Everything is negative first, that is cynical. All intellectual scholarships, universities have become cynical now. They talk everything negatively. There is no standard, there is no value. When there is no value, there is only criticism, criticism, criticism. From all angles there is only criticism. And see nothing valuable, nothing lasting, nothing useful in it. This is a destructive criticism, culminating in nothing, culminating in only vast destruction, overwhelming destruction. We call it havoc. Such people become more dangerous. Their brains are perverted. Their writings and speeches should not be given any importance to, because they themselves are disturbed people, perverted people. They have not achieved anything good in life. Are they mystics? Have they learnt? Have they grown to certain spiritual level, deeper level? Have they made their life successful? Successful in the sense fulfilled in a spiritual sense? No. When their life is not fulfilled, they themselves are aimless, frustrated and dead end. They reached a dead end. So they are not their interpretations are negative. They shouldn't be just rejected. It's utter foolishness. Therefore, yajna is talked about in these 4 levels. Bhagavad Gita or our Puranas and our Shastras talk of all these 4 levels. So he says, first in the 24th shloka, he described Jnani state as a yajna, because people as a ordinary sadhakas follow some form of yajna. If you say, oh, jnanam, enlightenment is not yajna, you may lose interest. You think that, oh my God, yajna is a beautiful thing. It gives you certain values, discipline, purity of heart. If you say enlightenment is not yajna, then he may lose interest in it, because he misunderstands what is enlightenment. So enlightenment includes all that is good in the yajna, okay? All that is good in the yajna, all that is good in the values, they all culminate into absolute level, okay? Values are there, selflessness is there, love is there, creativity is there, discipline is there. All these values, all these good qualities reach the highest culmination, highest perfection. So that is enlightenment. Okay, therefore, enlightened jnani state is described as Brahmaharpanam Brahmahagni. Now, two things he say. To be able to reach that enlightened state, then what are the other states, other lower state, lower sadhanas? Now he discusses various yajnas. And this purpose of various yajnas is two. One is to help encourage the sadhaka to follow these yajna, any one of these yajna, any one or two or whatever. So your profession is a yajna, your living is a yajna, your family life is a yajna, your personal life is a yajna. People should not lose interest, should not become frustrated, because the loneliness is haunting the modern civilization, because the man-to-man relationship, the human relationship have become too commercial, because the communism, when it questioned the values, then everything is becoming commercial, everything is priced. Price, not price, not Z. I am using price. Price means what you call material value. Everything is priced. Even spiritual teaching, guru teaching, service to guru, all this has been materially evaluated. I tell you, certain noble feelings, respect, love and reverence, that should be evaluated through money, materially. That is a highly dangerous thing. Okay. Now everything is priced. That's what communism represents, animalistic outlook of mysticism. Okay, you look at mysticism through an animal's mind, or look at through mechanical mind. A living, you look upon a human being as a robot, as a machine. Looking upon a human being who has got a feelings, thoughts and consciousness through an emotion, treat him like a machine. So you only take care of the needs of a machine. Like a machine needs petrol, human beings needs a food. You mean food is simply petrol for the machine to run, that's all. No feelings, no sentiments, etc. No thoughts. So this is communism represents this materialistic outlook, looking at materialistically what is beyond materialism. The problem is this alone. The modern civilization has created this. Look at what is a different what belongs to different area, you look at from this area and judge it. Oh, this has created a terrible problem. Therefore, various yajnas are talked about it because it purifies your personality, gives discipline, gives values. Your personality is integrated, and your very relationship with life is full of devotion, full of a noble feeling of a yogic karma yoga feeling. Okay, so these rituals, these various yajnas can be practiced in two ways. One is for some punya, some religious merit, like paraloka punyam merit, or you may do it selflessly with a nishkama yajna. Yajna can be done two ways. One is sakama, another is nishkama. Because these yajnas have got a power, they produce some religious merit, and you will get some heaven and some such things. Okay, so that gives you punyam. One is. Second thing is, you don't expect punyam, then you want to do it as a yoga, as a karma yoga. The same rituals, we have the same yajnas which were discussed, 12 of them. 12 yajnas purify a person, integrate his personality, make him a simple, gentle, lovable and a selfless person. And also he develops an immense strength, inner strength, a spiritual strength, which doesn't disturb him, which makes his mind peaceful and relaxed, and with all noble values. So the values are not forced one. Okay, like Islam and Christianity, they force them, but they naturally evolve in you. Your mind purifies, and as a result of purification, mind learns those values. In fact, it teaches that all these values are natural to human being. All the noble values, good values are natural to human being. You don't have to artificially impose on you. You don't have to artificially cultivate them. It is a discovery within you. More and more you purify, all these noble values spontaneously appear in you because they are natural to human mind. Okay, so therefore these yajnas can be done two ways. One is with certain motive, with certain punya phalam, with such a expecting some religious merit you can do, you will get religious merit also. Second thing is, you may do them selflessly without expecting any result, just out of love, out of devotion for your Ishvara, do it them. So the very doing itself brings about a very good personality, a purer personality. Okay, so the karma yoga purifies. Then the next yajna is, within the 12 yajnas, there is one yajna talked about jnana yajna, second yajna, that is tattva vichara, self-enquiry. Therefore, performing these yajnas purifies your mind, prepares you for self-enquiry, and self-enquiry culminates into enlightenment. Okay. Therefore, he says, there are many yajnas taught in 32nd shloka. I just repeat a few words. Evam bahuvida yajna vitata brahmano mukhe. In the teaching of the Veda, in the mouth of the Veda, mouth means teaching. Brahmano mukhe, Brahma here means Veda. See, the word Brahma has got many meanings. According to the context, we have to take them. Brahma can mean Veda, Brahmana can mean Brahman, Brahma can mean Paramatma. Okay. So here, Brahmano mukhe, in the mouth, mouth means in the teaching. We find these various yajnas described in the teaching of the Veda. Vedic teaching is not simply information. It inspires you. It encourages you. It gives you a deeper feeling in you and helps you to rule the right way of that yajna. It is a leading and guiding like a guru. It is a loving and caring. Therefore, Shastra is a lover, is like a mother, is like a father, is like a guru. Shastra lovingly cares for you and teaches you. We always call Shastra as a mother. Shankaracharya says, Shastra is like 1,000 mothers put together. You see, the heart of a mother is kind, compassionate, helping, leading, guiding, okay, all that put together. So, when you, Shankaracharya at one point says, Shastras represents 1,000 mothers' heart of 1,000 mothers. So therefore, Shastra is not a rigid dictator. The biblical and Quranic and even communistic Shastras represent a dictatorial, okay, dictatorial, illogical and forced, aggressively imposed on you. Idea is imposed, you must follow, otherwise it will kill you, threaten you. It threatens you if you don't follow, threatens with hell. If you follow, it tells you you will go to hell, heaven eternally. How? You have to obey, that's all. You obey, that is enough. Believe and obey, that's enough. You don't have to do anything. Believe. There is no obeying. Believe and be loyal to them, that's all. So, it looks very artificial. There is no real spiritual change in the person, yet they are promised eternal heaven. Without any inner change of the person and personality and the purification, he is promised of eternal heaven. So this looks very, very odd. Why odd? It's a totally pervert thinking. And God's forgiveness is also taken for granted. And you can commit any crime in the name of forgiveness of God. Keeping the forgiveness that God will forgive me anyway, therefore you can commit any crime. These are all pervert things. Okay. Therefore, he says, in the Veda itself means that compassionate understanding, broadest understanding, that vision, that knowledge, that understanding is called Veda. Vedic book is okay, book comes at a later stage. But that knowledge, that a compassionate knowledge, that loving teaching, having a total vision, highest vision, deepest mystic vision, it understands the cosmic laws, it understands the spiritual depth. So that understanding is called Veda. Therefore, in the teaching of the Veda means a teaching done from that level. Okay. So in the Vedic teaching, you find like this various yajnas. That's why we say there are many ways. after reading Hinduism, so that is a European way. You see, any European who comes across Hinduism or studies them, learns somewhat, whatever he learns, later he starts changing. There is no one way, there are many ways. Hindus don't understand what is this one way, many way. What is this one way, many ways? Oh, then we have to teach Hindus many things about European and Christianity and all that. Hindus also don't understand, don't know many things. Many ways means, what is many ways? We have ways, different ways, that's all. We take all ways as ways alone. Anybody can follow any way, they are all different ways. Why this one way, many way? Way is a way, that's all. We see, when you take up any sadhana, do you do it effectively? That's all we counts. We don't see whether one way or two ways or 5 ways or 10 ways or 100 ways. That's why yajnas are talked about 12 yajnas. Why 12? There can be 100 yajnas. Why 12 alone? You can talk of 100 yajnas also. So not how many yajnas are there, whether one or many is not the point. Anything, how you do it, doing it in a yagnik way. Yagnik, I don't know, you do, yajna way is called yagnik way. Yagnik is an adjective in Sanskrit. So yajna and yagnika. Yagnika means I don't know how to say that in English, in a yajna way. So doing a thing with a wholeheartedly, sincerely, lovingly, in a creatively yajna way, that's what counts. Therefore, we don't look at it whether it is a one way or two ways or many ways, or whether one way or many ways, so what? Any way you take it, do it wholeheartedly, that counts. Do it qualitatively, effectively do them. Do them in such a way perfectly that it really changes your life, purifies your life, makes you a selfless person. Okay? This is what counts, not, oh my God. My YouTube is getting disturbed. Something has gone wrong with my YouTube. I have not done anything. Why suddenly change this thing? Therefore, he says, no, there are two ways of yajna, two levels of yajna. One is performing as a doer. You are an agent of action as an individual jiva. As an individual jiva, follows noble values, actions, etc., various yajnas. One is. Another yajna is directly the enlightenment. And that means a self-enquiry is a jnana yajna. This is called karma yajna. Karma yajna means anything other than self-enquiry is called karma yajna. All yogas, rituals, values, all these are karmic yajna, karma yajna. Karma yajna means this yajna involves a kind of a performance. So karmajan vidditan sarvan yevam jnatva vimokshase. But these yajnas help you to purify. But you also have to understand these yajnas are useful, good at certain lower stage of sadhana. But there is another sadhana where you have to transcend all these yajnas and understand the truth, that is a jnana yajna. Therefore, he is showing these two levels, karmajan vidditan sarvan. Know that all these yajnas spring from karma. Spring from karma, but Atma itself is free from any karma. Karma means a movement, a change. Atma in its real nature is changeless. It is unchanging. There is no movement, neither more nor less, neither good nor bad. It doesn't change. It is universal and all pervasive. Therefore, evam jnatva vimokshase. If you come to discover this, intuit this, Atma is beyond any ritualistic karmas. Atma is not a karma. Okay? So there is the two types of yajna. There is one yajna is of karma type, another yajna is jnana type, which transcends the karma. Okay. Therefore, he is showing these 12 yajnas. One yajna is jnana yajna. Leaving that one yajna, other 10 or 11 yajnas represent karmic. Karma means performance. Okay. Therefore, know these to be karma type. Karma means doing, performing some kind of deeds. But there is another yajna. Next shloka 33 she says, Shreyan Dravyamayad Yajnat Jnana Yajna Parantapa. So compared to these yajnas, life, values, disciplines, compared to these yajna, there is another yajna, that is Jnana Yajna. This was also included in one of these 12. The second yajna is Jnana Yajna. Okay, the self-enquiry comes at a later stage. It is advanced yajna where a person develops a purer personality, then he inquires into the truth. Jnana yajna only corrects the error. Other yajnas only purify your mind, give you self-control, control of sense organs, control of mind, purifying your personality. Okay, it makes you a better person, gentle person. Okay, so it is purifying your mind is one thing, but correcting the misunderstanding is another. Vedantic Jnanam or Jnana Yajna corrects the misunderstanding. He says this Jnana Yajna is a higher step, next step. Therefore, Shreyan Dravyamayad Yajnat Jnana Yajna Parantapa. Jnana Yajna is a higher advanced step. And other yajnas are okay, are useful, but this is most important. Jnana Yajna is inevitable for understanding the truth. Therefore, Jnana Yajna Parantapa is a better sadhana. Sarvankar, and these karmas have to ultimately come into Jnana only. Whatever the various rituals you perform, all these ritual yajnas, all these values and discipline, ethics, etc., can only purify your mind, give you discipline, yet that all those yajnas culminate or they get included in the Jnana Yajna. When you discover the enlightenment by self-enquiry, all other yajnas get included in it. That means you will come into the perfect life. Okay, Sarvam karma khilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Therefore, the lower yajnas included in the Jnana Yajna culminates into enlightenment. All other yajnas are included. That means his spontaneous life itself is yajnic life. Every moment, every second, whatever he does, an enlightened man, whatever he does, whether sitting, standing, walking, speaking, anything, all that is in a selflessly yajnic way he does. Okay, up to this. Now, how to get that jnanam? Okay, I'll speak a few minutes alone, just 2 to 3 minutes and close it. Now, first we talked about, I think, 4 yajnas. I just repeat and then go. One is one ritual yajna. Second is the values, discipline, any noble life you live, any noble way of life. A healthy, noble way of life in a ritualist, in a spiritual way, in a religious way. All those various things, including yoga, bhakti, karma, rituals, discipline, values, all that. So it is a broader meaning of yajna, second yajna. Third is jnana yajna. Okay. In fact, there are only 3 yajnas. Fourth is not yajna, it is only a figure. It is only a figuratively, jnani's enlightenment is described figuratively in a poetic way. Poetic way, you understand? In a figuratively described as yajna. Jnani's enlightened state is described as a yajna. So that is a figurative explanation. Actually, there are 3. Now he says, okay, the lower yajnas you follow, you gain certain purity of life, certain discipline, certain values. Then you told, compared to these yajnas, there is an advanced state, higher state called jnana yajna. He says how to follow that jnana yajna, how to get jnanam. Okay, tadetat vishishtam jnanam tarhi kena prapyate. Who will attain that jnana and how will he attain? That is described in the 31st shloka. Okay, this new shloka we are touching today. Up to 33 we already covered once, and again today also we covered certain nuances. Now, tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas-tattvadarshinaha. This shloka also has to be covered within two classes, more than one class definitely, because there are certain misunderstanding among the people. We have to correct them. This is very important. So how do you get that jnanam? That means how do you practice jnana yoga? He says go to Guru first. Okay, first go to Guru, and going to Guru, finding a Guru is not enough. There should be a relationship with your Guru, should be pariprashnena sevaya. There should be a service. The idea of service, what service is, we'll tell later. Service means a very respectable, venerable relationship. That's what it means. What you do, service is okay, but service is an expression of your love and reverence for, respect and reverence for Guru. So then put a question, because it is learning. You put question, he explains to you in your anubhava. In your anubhava, he touches that. Therefore, upadekshanti te jnanam. Such jnanis will teach you. Jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So here, one approaching Guru, then the relationship with Guru and his teaching, and the Guru's nature. Who is Guru? These four topics are there in this one shloka, 4 points. These 4 points we have to discuss more elaborately. I think we will discuss in the next class one by one. First, the need of a Guru. People ask a question, this also, I tell you, terrible people. Earlier India, Guru, need of a Guru has been accepted. Nowadays you see them, why Guru? This cynicism is the most pervasive. They ask question, why do we need a Guru? We do whatever we like. We read the book and do whatever. Once this publishing has come, book publishing, people just read anything and they misunderstand, misinterpret, and they think they argue with anything and dismiss anything. So this kind of a cynicism has overtaken. This has become substitute for anything. Any Shastra, any Guru, any sadhana, cynicism is the only substitute. Oh. Cynicism means dismissing everything, making fun of everything, mocking, rejecting, arguing against it, and having no faith, no interest, no this thing. Just dismiss everything. Talk negatively about anything. This is called cynicism. Okay. So first, do we need a Guru? People ask me. I told again, how many times we can, in a Facebook, writing in a small space, it takes long time. Therefore, we will discuss, is there a need for Guru? Second is your relationship with Guru. Third is his teaching. Fourth is the very nature of Guru. What is a Guru? Okay. These 4 topics are discussed in this one shloka. We will discuss. So this is Jnana Yoga. In Jnana Yoga, these 4 points are involved. So first we do other rituals, and then purify the mind, prepare your mind, then take up, this is advanced yoga, that is Jnana Yoga. Bhagavad Gita discusses to Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So after living Karma Yoga for some time, when mind gets purified, you take up to the Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga culminates into an enlightenment. That is also called what you call Yajna, but that Yajna is only a figuratively described as, Jnani state is described as Yajna. Okay. So this shloka, 34th shloka, Tadvidhi Pranipatena, 4 topics we will discuss in the next class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.